very creative kind of operation, and we love this film. It has to do with the American culture, you know, of the country music. I love music.
Marc, this was a passion project for you, I know. Talk a little bit about, you know, was there ever a point where you thought, wow, you know, I want to do this, but I just can't take it anymore. It's taken too long to see it happen?
No. I was certain that I would get it done. I don't know, because I mean, look, of course you have moments when you're in the middle of it and money's not showing up and line producer saying, hey, we got a problem, or we can't land this person, or an actor falls out. Of course, all those things keep you up at night. I mean, there's no film. I don't care how much money you have. And we shot this movie. It's a big movie, and we shot it in 39 days, and we shot 156 locations. I mean, 156 scenes in 57 locations. I mean, when you see that scene with Tom singing Lovesick Blues, and the scene later on with Billie Jean when he sings Why Don't You Love Me, we shot that in the same night. On a studio movie, that would be a week.
Wow, so, that's incredible.
But no, I mean, you know, getting something like this is force of will. You just, I mean, you have your own personal doubts, but the script always seemed to draw attention to what I wanted to do. And first person I talked to about it, the very first person I talked to about making the movie was Dante. That's the truth. We sat down, we talked about it. Dante said, we'll do it, let's do it, you know, and he went off, did some other things, and I did some other things, but in the meantime, I just kept pushing forward and forward and forward. And when I hired Tom Hiddleston, nobody knew who Tom Hiddleston was. I told people, he hadn't come out in Thor, he hadn't come out in Avengers. Friends of mine said, who's Tom Hiddleston? And then when he came out in those movies, they said, well, why'd you hire a Brit? And now when I see people, they go, hey, how'd you get Tom Hiddleston?
You know, since we don't have too much time, I am going to ask, do you all have any questions? Okido?
Who are the musicians who back them up?
I love that question. That's a great question. Because guess what? None of them are really actors. Well, two of them have been in movies before, barely. The guitar player plays Don Williams. By the way, everybody in that is playing the actual instruments. That's why when you see it paying up, you don't see them they're all playing. The guy who plays Don, his best friend, Don Helms, on this pedal, I found in a guitar store.
Wow.
And he'd never been in a movie in his life, West Langlois. And then the guy on the bass is a world-class bass player. And he studied, he's got a doctorate from Vandy. His name's Michael Renee, and he tours with Emmylou and Rodney. And I saw him playing with Emmylou and Rodney, and I just loved his look, and he's the sweetest guy, buttermilk his mouth. And I just had him read some scenes. I went, all right. And then the other two guys had sort of been in movies, but had never. Casey, who plays the fiddle, actually is a guitar player, but he learned all the pieces on the fiddle. The actual tracks, some of them played on them, some of them didn't, but those tracks were recorded by a brilliant producer named Ray Kennedy, all on the original equipment. If you hear those tracks for real, they're as authentic as Hank's tracks, because they're done exactly the same. So, yeah, they're just, I didn't want, you know, I just didn't want people to be I wanted them to be believable, and I didn't want to be people you guys go, oh yeah, hey, I know that he's not really that. So that's where they came from.
Marc, what drew you to Hank Williams? I mean, what was it about him that you thought, this is a story that I really want to tell?
Well, I love country music. I was down at the Common Grounds, that joint down here, and the thing, and they were playing nothing but country music when I was having breakfast this morning. Patsy Cline and Ray Price. I grew up in Louisville, and I listen to Nashville stations. I'm a big country music fan. And if you love country music, you end up going back to Hank, because Hank is on the Mount Olympus. And then one of the first books that I bought was an encyclopedia of country music. So I knew a lot about his story. And then I just felt one day somebody was going to tell that story, and if it weren't me, I was really going to be pissed off. I did. I just said, I'm the guy to tell it. So I sat down and finally did it. I mean, but I love, it's not just the music. I do love his music. It's his poetry. I think he's one of the greatest poets of the 20th century. And if you ask many great musicians, and Bob Dylan or Bruce Springsteen, and Neil Young has his guitar, and I mean, there isn't any great musician, and I'm sure you can attest to that, who won't tell you that Hank Williams had some influence, because he broke a lot of barriers, and he sang some music that people weren't prepared for at the time.
Well, we're very glad that you did. Anyone? Is there another question?
I think the musical performance and the actor's performance is brilliant, and I think you're very proud of it. I have one historical quibble, though, since you started talking about the history of music. WSM had a national singer, and it was destination radio, thousands and thousands of homes. Thousands and thousands of homes on Saturday night, the Grand Ole Opry.
Yes.
And you treated Ryman Auditorium like it was like a stage show, which it was. But it was also the power of Williams and all the other artists was magnified greatly by the hayride.
The hayride was in Shreveport, yeah.
Yeah, but by the radio audience. And that incredible reach they had, and you chose not to portray that, to show that.
Well,
I was just curious about that.
Because to me, those kind of scenes are often very corny. Like, you're going to go get people that you don't know, that you haven't really been exposed to, sitting by the radio, listening to it, to try to enhance the influence of who the character was. And I just kept it in a much smaller zone. There is the scene in WSM, and you're right, it was a 50,000 watt station. I used to listen to it. And the Opry, it actually still goes on. You can hear it on Sirius Willie's Roadhouse on 59. They do it. But that influence, so I just tried to talk about the fact, when Hank talks about being on the road 119 days, a lot of people think that's what, really pushed him over the edge. The guys in Shreveport, the Hayride, which was a smaller version of the Opry, to this day, the guys that ran that, a couple of people were left, said to me they felt like the Opry drove Hank too hard. They drove all those guys really hard. Yeah, but I didn't know how, I just didn't know how to get out of my story to go show the influence of the radio station. But you were correct in knowing that, yes, it did get out there. But I did show him on the Perry Como show. I didn't show him on the show, but to show his influence, that he was out in Hollywood and places like that.
All right, another question? Yes.
The movie was great. We really enjoyed it. Very well done. My question is, did any of his existing family, Hank Jr. or what's her name, Jet Williams, did they have any input into it? Have you seen it?
Yes. Well, Junior hasn't seen it. He don't want anything to do with it because he spent his whole life. Junior is a really complicated guy. And he had a really rough situation. And the history of these kinds of things is completely repeated over and over again. His dad, Hank Sr., didn't really have a father, as shown in the movie. And Junior lost his father when he was 3. And Junior was put on the road by Audrey at the age of 7, dressed up and singing his dad's songs. And really had a horrible childhood. And then Audrey died of alcoholism not that much longer, maybe 5 to 7 years later. And he went along early on in his career trying to imitate his dad. And then he had a terrible accident. And then one day he realized, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And he actually created his own Southern rock kind of thing. And he's talented. He's a complicated guy. He has 2 daughters, Hillary and Holly. Holly is actually a very talented artist. And Holly's very sharp and with it and together. And Holly saw the movie. I took a movie down to Nashville very nervously and showed it to Holly and Jet. Jet is the daughter that is spoken about on the scene on the pier. That kid that he said, I'll take care of, is actually Jet Williams. She did not know she was Hank's daughter for 30 years. She had a horrible upbringing as well. She was in orphanages and all. And then when she found out that she was Hank's daughter, because her husband was a lawyer, and they proved it through the stuff that I actually mentioned in the film, she ultimately had to sue. And then she and Junior were at it like this because the royalties were up against each other. It was a crazy family. When I showed it to both Jet, it was very emotional for Jet because it was sort of a validation of who she is. And Holly came up to me afterwards. Holly's really sharp. She's a very grounded, and she said, it's only an understatement, Mark, to tell you how messed up our family is. I can't tell you, she said, but she was very emotional. She loved the movie and said to me, but not everybody's going to be happy, but I believe everybody was treated fairly.